Elon Musk and his ridiculous non-understanding of American politics than simply just responding to this little clip that is posted on the Twitter tubes, on Twitter, on Shitter, or whatever you want to call it, X, because, he had to be different, but I'm calling it Twitter. But anyway, so this is a big, ugly picture of Elon Musk first before we actually start playing. Oh, not that one. That one. There we go. There you go. Don Lemon Show. Don Lemon Official. And he is talking about various things, and we will pause as we need to in order to discuss what he is saying and what he's failing to understand. So let's go.
Yeah. Can we talk about the Great Replacement Theory now? Some of the things that you post, the Great Replacement Theory, you claim that Democrats, President Biden's immigration plan to open up the border, you said that the president is getting, and Democrats are doing it to get more votes.
Now, here's the thing with Great Replacement Theory, like that's in and of itself a anti-Semitic, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. You don't want to prejudge people. You really don't. But when it turns out that someone whose family's from South Africa turns out being anti-Semitic and bigoted and racist, you know that he's coming from that part of the country or those people in the country that probably still hold those beliefs. If he's sitting there spouting the replacement theory, holy crap. But let's continue.
But undocumented immigrants cannot vote in federal elections, so how is that possible?
And that's what I've said to him in tweets several times whenever he posts about, Democrats want more voters. That's why they're allowing immigrants. I'm like, no, they can't vote. Sorry, brah, you're wrong. You're just making a big stink out of nothing. But, let's hear what Mr. Musk has to say to see what it is exactly that he is trying to say here.
Right. Well, you're conflating two things. One is Great Replacement
You're conflating
Theory.
two things. He's not the one conflating. He's quoting off of you, Elon. You're the one who's stating this. He's not conflating anything. He's calling you out on your words, bruh.
The other is, which I don't subscribe to that. I'm simply saying that there is an incentive here. If legal immigrants, which I think have a very strong bias to, at least everything I've read, it's a very strong bias to vote Democrat.
Do they? Because even if they come from, there are immigrants that come from many other areas of the world who are conservative-minded. You have the Republicans never talk about the people who come over from Cuba because they're more than happy to accept Cuban refugees because Cuban refugees tend to be lashing out against communism and socialism and tend to be more conservative. That's why you never hear them when they're talking about, building a wall. They're not going to build a wall on Florida's tip to stop anybody from Cuba coming over. Why is that? Because they don't mind the Cubans coming over because they'll use them to their own benefits. Let's continue.
The more that come into the country, the more they're likely to vote in that direction. But it is,
again, they can't vote.
in my view, a simple incentive to increase voters to Democrat voters.
Increase voters to Democrat voters. Not exactly what he's saying here with that line, but he does go a little bit into more detail, and that's where we're going to get why he really doesn't understand American politics whatsoever.
And so
Don Lemon's face just says it all, just like, what?
the question is like how. So there's a few ways that this works. One is that when the census is done, the census is based on all people in an area, whether they are citizens or not.
And he is right, except for conservatives don't want to count them. So when Trump was president, he wanted to balk at counting them, at least in certain states or whatever. But he's right about that. And I've talked about this on the show before. I've talked about how the census counts everybody, including people who are here who are undocumented, people who are, laborers, people who are, whatever you're here for, they count you. Regardless of whether or not you're here you're here following our immigration laws or you're not. And of course, I'll remind everybody that somebody coming into the country, stepping foot on American soil and declaring asylum is a legal act. That is not a violation of the law. A lot of the people who are here in violation of our immigration policies are people who, like, overstay their visas and stuff like that, or who lie on their visas to marry rich orange billionaires. But let's continue.
So if there are a concentration of people who came here illegally in a particular state, or in a particular state, that state will actually then get an increased number of House seats.
So he's talking apportionment. And I have also talked about this on the show. I have said many times, even though it should be illegal for DeSantis and Abbott to involve themselves at all in border policy, and they should be considered to be kidnappers for their actions involving taking the people who are undocumented migrants or who are asylum seekers or whatever they feel of them, and putting them into buses and shipping them over to like Martha's Vineyard or to California or New York City or wherever it is that they shipped them to. I think those actions should be illegal, but I've been saying on the show for a long time, perfect, send them all to the blue states so that when it comes time for apportionment in 2030, we'll get more congressional seats. Thank you, DeSantis. Thank you, Abbott, for helping the blue states get more seats in the long term. But here's what Elon Musk doesn't get. This is what Elon Musk, he doesn't get. It's not the Democrats that are moving these people around. It's the Republicans. DeSantis and Abbott are the ones who are taking these people and shipping them off to different areas. If they would have just, if DeSantis and Abbott had working brain cells, they'd have been like, yes, please, stay in our states. We'll find a place for you. And then in 2030, when it comes time to do the census, we'll have even more of a say in Congress than we already do. But no, they're stupid. They don't understand this. They don't understand the strategic nature of what might happen. So yeah, I'm actually a little impressed maybe that Musk understands that by having more bodies in a state, that state can get more congressional seats. But he's not understanding the fact that it's DeSantis and Abbott who are shipping all of these people all over the country. If they hadn't done that, there'd be more people staying in Texas, more people staying in Florida, and then come 2030, you'll have another seat or two maybe in those two states because you didn't, think stupidly about the whole thing. But I'm like, send them all. Send them all to the blue states so that the blue states can overcome the issues that they're having with apportionment. Because we're not doing apportionment correctly. If we apportioned correctly, we'd have 100 more seats in general. And like California would have at least 10, if not 12 more seats. I think maybe even 14. I think I figured out that it should either be 68 or 69, and I believe they have 53 or 55. So it's either going to be they're at most 15 away. I think of 15 fewer seats than what really should exist in California at the moment. If you compare California's population size to Wyoming's population size, so if we took if we took Wyoming, which is the least populous state, and we took the number of Wyoming populations that each state has, you would get 100 more seats. Some seats might go to Republicans, some seat might go to Democrats, but you'd be able to more effectively and accurately represent the number of the representation in Congress as the founders wished, minimally. In reality, you could go lower than that. You could give Wyoming like 5 seats and say that a fifth of Wyoming is enough to represent, and then you could you'd have like what? 250 seats from California? They'll never go for that. The Californians, they'll never ever go for that. But you would have you'd have a better equipped or more closely aligned electorate, or at least House, as compared to what the founders wanted. Now, granted, the founders aren't, these beacons of clarity that we should look for in times of need or struggle or when looking for answers for things. But if you want to go quote the founders, look what the founders did, what the founders set up, we're not doing that either. We're doing it worse than the founders did it, except for, the whole 3/5 compromise thing. So, but California is absolutely underrepresented in Congress because we don't apportion correctly. Let's continue.
So the House seat apportionment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens. So
except they've restricted it to 435, which means they have to do fuzzy math.
The illegals overwhelmingly go to places like California and New York.
No, they can go anywhere. They've been everywhere. A lot of them are in Texas. A lot of them are in Florida, but Abbott and DeSantis don't want them, so they've been shipping them off to the blue states. Again, it's the Republicans doing this. It's not the Democrats that are doing this. It's the Republicans that are doing this. We have a border policy that could be passed. It passed the Senate, but the House won't pass it, even though there's enough votes in the House to pass it, because the Republicans in the House are using the Hastert rule, which basically says in order for anything to be brought up to the floor, a majority of the majority has to support it. So you need to have more than 50% plus one of the Republicans in the House saying, yes, let's push it, before it actually gets pushed to the floor, which the Hastert rule just pisses me off. If you have a majority of the people in the House that want to pass something, they should be able to pass it. But the Speaker of the House has too much power to prevent that from happening.
And if you just look at the math, if you look at the apportionment with and without illegals, I believe California would lose. I believe the blue states, there would be a net loss of blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House.
He believes this. Now, maybe I can make maybe that's my next project to do, is to debunk Elon Musk, to see or even see what he's saying, to see if you're only counting. I mean, I don't know how you would get all the information. You'd have to probably look at some census information, but you'd have to then rely that the last census was done correctly, and the last census was done under Trump. So, and there were problems with that census because he wanted to manipulate the system again. So, and we're in the middle of COVID during the last census, so that also put a wrench in the works, so to speak. So maybe he's right. I don't know. But if we were to fix the Electoral College or fix the apportionment that takes place by adding more seats, as I described earlier, we would give the Democrats more say that they should have, because they currently don't have the say that they should have with the current apportionment. Because you're losing like 15 seats, 10 to 15 seats in California by itself, let alone anywhere else. But of course, Musk is going to believe what he wants to believe, and he's probably not going to be open-minded enough to listen to anybody else who dares question his decrees or his beliefs or what have you. Because again, they're beliefs. He hasn't backed them up with any fact as far as I can see.
This also applies to the Electoral College. So you say, this also applies to electing the president. Because the electoral votes are also done by apportionment the same way that House seats are done.
But the reason, Elon, the Electoral College is in place is to balance that, is so that doesn't happen. So what you're saying about it is the exact opposite of the reason why the Electoral College.
Yes. The Electoral College gives undue weight to small red states, even more so than what the founders had intended. Because if you look at the difference between Rhode Island and Virginia back in the 1790s, it's 11 times difference. But if you look at the difference between Wyoming and California, it's 55 times different. 55 times more, maybe more than that. Or at least that's the say that they have, is 55 times more say, when they should have 68 times more say.
College is there. The Electoral College at this point in our history gives people who are in smaller states and red states much more of an influence over our elections than people who are in blue states, and the majority of the people in this country. That's what the Electoral College does. It actually does the exact opposite of what you're saying. It protects
Thank you, Don.
people who are in smaller states and protects.
And Elon's like, I don't know how to handle this, so I don't know what I'm going to do now, because he's going against what I say, and I'm a billionaire, I'm a rich person. I don't like when people contradict me, but yet I can't fire him.
People who are in red states.
Well,
red states because they tend to be smaller and less populous.
I think that statement is what you said is true, but what I said is also true.
Okay, is that like the eBay comment way back in the day, like when they were trying to tell people how they deal with fraud? Is like, sometimes we undercount fraud, but we also overcount fraud. So they undercount and overcount fraud at the same time. How does that work? No, either the Electoral College works to protect red states, or the Electoral College is working to give blue states more power, because you're not counting just people who can vote, but you're counting everybody. It doesn't work both ways, Elon, and you're wrong.
Which is that if as is the case,
he looks stoned. Just look at his eyes. Just wait, Mike. Just wait, Bicycle Mike.
A disproportionate number of legal immigrants go to blue states. They amplify the effect of a blue state vote. And the math, as I understand it, you can research this obviously very easily.
The job there, Elon, to prove an argument is on you, sir. You have the onus to back up your claims. It's not the responsibility of anybody else to back up your claims.
It's pretty straightforward to research this. But my understanding is that there would be that the Democrats would lose approximately 20 seats in the House if illegals were not counted in the census. And that's also 20 less electoral votes for president. So the illegals absolutely do affect the who controls the House and who controls the presidency. It does not affect the Senate.
Yeah.
There was another question that Don Lemon asked about his ketamine issue or whatever. The fact that he has a ketamine prescription, and Elon Musk didn't like the fact that he was asked about why he has ketamine prescribed to him. But I think he did confirm at least that he had a ketamine prescription that his doctor prescribed for him. So there's that. But yeah, he's definitely backpedaling now. Yeah, Bicycle Mike, 2 + 2 = 5. That is correct. Although with some of the things that we I've looked at as it pertains to was it the newer math that the kids are doing these days? When you deal with approximations, you actually have situations where you have to show why 2 + 2 = 5, and I'm like, are they not hearing themselves? I mean, this is just pure Animal Farm 1984 BS. Yes, South African man explains America's politics. I would add in there, Bicycle Mike, poorly. Yeah, and after this interview, Musk dropped Don Lemon's show because he doesn't like the fact that, Don Lemon talked about his ketamine or whatever. There are four lights. Good Star Trek reference, Steve. Way to go. Let's see, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but there is something about big city rule. Chicago is needy or greedy. Itself, it neglects downstate. There are a lot of rural poor. There are a lot of rural poor. And a lot of those rural poor vote against their own best interests because they think one day they're going to be billionaires just like Donald, so they're going to vote for tax breaks for the rich because they hope one day, if they do become rich, that they're going to, get to benefit from these tax breaks too, when the likelihood of them ever becoming that rich is slim to none. So, good vibe, Tribe. 2 + 2 = 1,107.80. Exactly. Mish, ketamine therapy for depression helped my son tremendously. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I don't necessarily agree with the fact that Don Lemon asked about his any ketamine prescription that he has. Why? I mean, it's not a HIPAA violation, but still, it's kind of personal. If you have a legitimate prescription And we're not talking about like the Trump era White House pill mill pharmaceutical pill mill that existed in the White House pharmacy. If you have a legitimate cause that you need prescription, it should be none of anybody's business as to what you're taking and why you're taking it. And that pertains to ketamine, that pertains to the morning after pill, that pertains to any sort of oral contraception, that pertains to the abortion pills, etc. It's nobody's business. Should be nobody's business. But the only thing I do want to chime in there is that the whole flyover state argument sometimes people make when they talk about big cities is, again, we already have flyover states. Currently in the system that we have with the Electoral College, there's only at best 10 states that matter, and that's pushing it. There are some years back, like Bush v. Gore times, there was only 3 states that were relevant: Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Everything else was not relevant at all. Now it's expanded out to other states because Florida is almost solid. It's pretty solidly red now. Ohio is almost there at the same point. I mean, you have a very gerrymandered pro-Republican thing, pro-Republican legislature, pro-Republican congressional representation, but you still had them all come out and vote in support of abortion rights, which gives me a little bit of hope. But that's another thing that Elon didn't bring into account: the fact that you can have all of the people, all of the people who are not citizens who can't vote all you want. It doesn't matter if you gerrymander them. In fact, it helps with gerrymandering because you have to put so many people within a particular district. And one of the things that Texas does, and maybe other states do it too, but I know Texas is Mr. You lied during the Obama State of the Union. One of the reasons that he's in power, despite the fact that the Republicans only make up a plurality of the voters in that or the people in that district, is because a good chunk of the district that he was drawn into, gerrymander wise, you have a chunk of people who can't vote because you have a chunk of non-citizen individuals, be they legally there or seeking asylum legally, or be they undocumented migrants who are not here in following our immigration laws. You had maybe 30 to 40% of, thank you for that, Rose, 30 to 40% district of his district was people who weren't voting, weren't citizens. They were just shoved in there so they could make a district for him with enough Republicans to have more votes than the Democrats. And then gerrymandering also takes away the voting power of a lot of people, because in states like New York, you had their Supreme Court say, well, this gerrymandering is wrong. It's unfair to the Republicans. So you need to redraw your maps to be more fair. But then in the Republican states, they're like, let's draw these maps to make them as unfair as possible, and nobody bats an eye. So no, Elon, you don't understand half or a quarter of what the hell's going on in politics. You're just trying to be a xenophobic, ironic xenophobe. That's what you are. You're an ironic xenophobe because you're not from here neither. You're no better than anybody else who came to this country seeking a better life for themselves. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not saying people who are coming to this country seeking a better life for themselves are bad. I'm just saying that Elon is no better than any of them. He's probably much worse, especially if he's going to sit here being a hypocritical xenophobe. He could have been Hypocrite of the Week this week. Maybe I'll make him Hypocrite of the Week next week. I don't know. We'll see. But Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell already took that position. Anyways, do you agree with me? Disagree with me? What are your thoughts? Leave your comments below. Like and subscribe. Have a good day.